Say again?
That young man was.
Oh, yeah, he's
From
coming.
Germany.
Yeah, he's coming. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Is Brother Jan from India?
Yeah,
He's
he told me that.
living in Germany. Yeah, you know, okay, that's okay.
He told me that, I think,
Yeah.
last night we
Yeah.
met.
I've known him for a long time,
Oh,
but 7 years ago, he says that in India, he and I met. And he showed me a picture of Bruce. But beyond that, every month I get on language. Because I have a session with England, and it's the brethren in England that are Indian.
oh,
And so he joins from Germany because he's part of the group. So,
isn't that amazing?
yeah, I know. So he does everything.
Yeah.
Just everything. Okay, so as I did kind of mention this, but we have double the audience that I had when I mentioned this, so now I'll repeat this. What you have here is a list of years. It is the oldest record we have, historical record, of what happened before the flood. Now, does anybody know any ancient civilization that existed before the flood? Not before the flood, shortly after the flood, and what the name of that would be? That's a hard question, unless you're an historian. What would you say? You have a clue?
I think I know what you're talking about, but it's escaping me at the moment.
Okay.
No, say it again.
What was the question?
Do you know the name of any ancient historical civilization immediately after the flood? The oldest historical culture that you can think of after the flood, other than Noah and his. Say again?
Sumerian?
Nimrod. That's not bad. That's good. That's good. That's a person's name, though.
Sumerians?
Sumerian.
Is it?
Sumerian.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Does that strike you a bell? Sumerian. Sumer. Ancient Sumer. No.
That's
Okay.
what I was thinking.
Okay, you're trying to be agreeable, but, okay. So the ancient Sumerian civilization. Now there was a man named Thorkild Jacobson. He was a gentleman in Europe, and he wrote a book. When did he write this? Oh gosh, it's probably going on 100 years ago, but not quite that. I hope I'm not reading that dating this. Anyway, it was called The Sumerian King List. That's the name of his book, Sumerian King List. Now, Jim Parkinson knows about this because I got the Sumerian King List book from him. Now, years ago, before I had any idea how this connected with the Bible, I was so engaged with the Sumerian King List that I actually copied the entire book. I gave him the original back, and I have a copy of this entire book. And from that, here is the earliest record historically, other than the Bible, that anybody has access to that claims to represent what happened before the flood. Now, the people that know about the Sumerian culture, they say the first man that they record created, because they say it was created, was Adamu, something like that. Well, guess who that is? There's Adam. He's not on the list. Now, I don't have the list of the Sumerian names here, but the first man ever created according to Sumerian is not on the list. And the hero of the flood is not on the list. Now that name you might expect to be Noah, but it's something else, some Sumerian name. But it's commonly known to be the hero of the flood, and he's not on the list. And I think the reason is because the first man didn't have anybody to be king over, and the last man, everybody was destroyed, and he carried through the flood. So they listed the 8, quote, kings that ruled before the flood. Now after they give this record, they draw a line and they say, the flood came and carried them all away. So there's no question. This is their record of what happened before the flood. Yes, go ahead. Remind me of your first name.
Gabriella.
Gabriel. I almost said that and I said I'm going to be wrong. Okay, Gabriel.
What are these numbers? Is that populations or?
Those are numbers of years in which those kings reigned. Now that's incredible. You would never guess that, because how could anybody reign for 28,800 years?
Yeah,
that makes no sense at all.
Exactly.
But that's the Sumerian King List. Now you notice something else, that there's repetition, 28,800, 28,800, 36,000, 36,000, 28,800 again. This is not natural. And if somebody actually reigned for a period like that, wouldn't he reign 36,322? Why do you have all these zeros, double zeros at the end? So this makes no sense. But actually, after it says, the draw line says, then the flood came and swept them all away, then it gives you a new king list of what happened afterward. And guess what happens? All of those numbers start big and they start declining, declining and declining until finally you get down to a rational number. Well, isn't that what happens in Genesis 5? You start with big numbers that nobody knows today, not nearly as big as this though. And then after the flood, the ages start declining until you get down to modern times. Go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering, is their count of years different? Is it
Very different.
Yeah, I mean, is it days? Is
No,
it
that's a good question. That's the question to be
Months?
asked. How do you,
weeks?
yeah.
I
How
don't
do you know?
know.
Yeah, how do you know their years? They were meant to years, or
I don't read Sumerian, but the people
Okay.
that translate says that that's what they meant.
That's what they meant.
And when they draw a line says the flood carried them all away, and then they start decline, the number of years finally gets down to a rational number,
Wow.
and so there must be years. So apparently,
Huh.
now I've even heard people talk about Genesis 5, where people live, Adam lived 930 years, and then Methuselah 969 years, and I heard people try to explain that by saying, well, maybe they were talking about months. You know, this doesn't work, because when you get after the flood, first of all, I don't know, divide by 12, I still don't think that works, but go after the flood, all those numbers gradually begin declining until you get to our day. So at what point did they start changing? You know, it makes no sense. That's not a good explanation. So Genesis really gives you a proper count of years. But how do we explain that list of numbers? Okay, now in the Sumerian, which I read in this book, you know, in this article, I read in the book, but I also read the article in a place called Answers in Genesis. It says that the Sumerians used SARS and NERS. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of the word SARS, S-A-R-S, or NERS, N-E-R-S. But a SAR is 3,600 years. And a NER is 600. I shouldn't say years. Those numbers are 3,600 and 600. Okay. So they have a base 60 system, and even Old Babylonian had a base 6 system or something like that. So they're using huge numbers in sixes. Now they also have smaller numbers that are tens and ones, but they didn't put them in here. They only told you how many SARs and NERs these kings reigned. Now, even one SAR is ridiculous. No king reigned 3,600 years. So where are they getting these numbers from? How does this make any sense? Well, it turns out that if you change all of these numbers to SARs and to NERs, then, well, how shall I say this? How best should I put this? I'm going to suggest that my basic predicate here, and not mine, the article that I read, says that what they had was the record of Genesis in front of them. But they didn't really have the written record. They had the memory of the written record. Now, anybody that came through the flood had to have only one history, and that is what Noah brought on the ark with him through the flood. And what he brought with him would have been the record of Genesis chapter 5, where you have all of the ages of the patriarchs that lived. Now, they weren't kings, but the Sumerians said, well, we're going to call them kings. Go ahead, Dave.
But this is a record from before the flood.
This is a record about times before the flood,
Oh,
but this
okay,
record was
okay.
produced after the flood.
After the flood, okay.
Because the record says, after that line, the flood
Yeah.
carried them all away, and now here's the rest of them. So this is a record that was written after the flood about things that happened before the flood.
And if they used a different base,
I know.
instead of base 10 or,
Yeah,
you know,
If they use
off
the
the
base,
top of my head, it's been so long since I've looked at anything in another base, does that make any sense?
yes, it
Oh, okay.
would start to make more sense. But we'll see that in just a minute. Go ahead.
Because maybe before all of them came in, and you said something about this was that they found in the cave, the numbers and all of this. that
That's
were
right.
written down.
That's right. It's an actual clay tablet with Sumerian engraving on it, and it's extant today. I don't know where, British Museum somewhere. I don't know.
Okay.
But it actually, nobody disputes that this record was preserved from antiquity. everybody disputes whether it's any credible record, but it actually is real, you know. And the man that wrote this book, Thorkild Jacobsen, he wasn't particularly religious. He certainly wasn't thinking about Genesis at all. He was just reporting what they found. This number of years for all the 8 kings between, not including Adam and Noah, that lived before the flood. So what do we do with these numbers? Where they come from? So here's the theory that we're going to suggest. That if you take, you can see that these are round numbers, that, you know, no digits. Okay, so let's treat the Bible numbers the same way. Now, if you look in Genesis 5, and you look at the number of years for each one of these patriarchs, somebody read off to me. I know that Adam lived 930 years, but Adam is not included here, because the first man is not included. So after that would be Seth. Now, rounding the numbers to just drop the digits, just drop the single digits. Don't round them up, just drop them. So how many years then did Seth rule? Did Seth live? According to Genesis chapter 5.
800.
I hope he lived more than that. I have the year 910, is that right?
Oh,
Nine-
sorry. After the birth of
12,
Enoch.
912.
912, drop the 2, so we just 910. Okay, so I'm gonna put 910 here for Seth. Okay, how about Enos, the next one? Go down about 3 scriptures or so.
915.
900, I think,
Oh,
Jay,
I'm
you're
sorry.
right.
Yeah.
I think. What is the actual number?
905.
95, so we'll call it 900, just drop that, okay. 900. Okay, and Canaan, what about him? 910, yeah, okay. Okay, so the next one would be Mahalalel. How many for him?
895.
So that would be 890 to drop the digits, okay. And Jared, how many for that?
960.
960, okay. And for Enoch, not many for them, how many?
365.
Okay, and we'll drop the 5, so there's 360. And then we need Methuselah. Everybody knows him, 969, so we'll drop that, that'll be 960. And finally Lamech,
777.
777, so we'll call it 770. Okay. Does anybody have a calculator here? Yeah, I do, but I
Every phone has one.
there we go. Old fashioned, just a calculator. I know, I gotta change, I know. Okay, so let's total all those up and find out how many hundreds and how many tens this list comes to. Now, I happen to know the answer, I've got it written right here, but let's see if what you say. I want to know the total number of years in that listing. If you can do it in your head, great.
660.
You know, what's that?
660.
660. Okay. 6, 6, 6, 0. That is correct. That is the answer that I have in my mind. That's the answer I've got written down. So I think that is right. Now, suppose you're a Sumerian and you saw this number, 6660, and you have a base 60 counting system, as they did. Would that intrigue you? Yeah, okay, it wouldn't you. Okay. Okay. Well, let's put it this way. Let's suppose that all these numbers added up to 10,000. That would intrigue me. I'd say, whoa, how did that happen? We're base 10, and it came out exactly to 10,000. I'd say, oh, okay, that's a memorable number. I would remember that these generations, not including Adam and not including Noah, added up to 10,000 years. Boy, I'll remember that. I'll never forget that. So the good Sumerian would remember that. So he would remember this number, 6660. But what that really means is 66 hundredths and 6 tenths. Okay, now, if you were to change that to 66 SARS and 6 NERS, guess what you would get as a sum?
241,200.
You're exactly right. So you are following. You do know what's going on. Okay. All right. That's exactly what you get. And so,
Weird, wow.
so I think what's happening, and this is not my opinion, this was the article that I read on the internet, and a very, very scholarly article. He didn't just talk simple like I'm doing, SARS and NERS. He drew out all the cuneiform numbers and everything. It was a long article, very detailed. So he was a real scholar. But he said, what they're doing is they're merely reflecting this from their memory of this. But instead of saying that's hundreds and tens, they're saying that's SARS and NERS. And if you take 66 SARS and 60 NERS, I hope you get that answer. Okay, and I have a calculator, but I can't do that when I'm thinking up here. So if you track that out and you find I'm wrong, you let me know. But I'm pretty sure you'll find 66 times 3,600 plus 60 times 600 better come up to that answer.
It does, I just said.
It does, you just said, okay, good, good. So this is incredible. So they're reflecting in a different number system the same result that we get from Genesis chapter 5.
That's a big relief.
A big relief. Good. Also, this simplifies everything. Right, okay, good, good. So now the question is, what about all these individual numbers? Well, as you go through those numbers, you'll find out that somebody has forgotten what those numbers really should be. They've just remembered that total. Just like I would remember, if this was 10,000 years, I would remember that, but I can't remember all the 8 numbers that list up to it. So that is what's going on with the scribe that wrote this cuneiform inscription. He remembers the total. He's got to make up figures to make it up. Okay, let's put ourselves in his shoes, and let's try to make up these scriptures. By the way, I have a PowerPoint on this with all these things on it. I don't have it available here tonight. So I can always send you that, Margaret, just in case you wonder if you want those numbers.
Yeah, I would like that.
Easier.
Okay, so let's see what the scribe might have decided to do. If I was that scribe, what might I have decided to do? So I would say, okay, let's try this. Let's try 10 SARS for the first one. In fact, let's go 10 for each one of these. 10 for each one of these, okay?
Why'd you choose 10?
Huh?
Why
What's,
did you choose 10?
because it's a nice simple number, and it's
Okay,
going to
okay,
approximate the total. Okay, nice simple number. So we have 8 of these, that would be 10 SARS. That would be, let's see, I want 66 of them. And that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 80 of them. So it's too big. It's too big. So I know I'll reduce this one.
360 is
I'm sorry?
like Enoch, it says 360. Could we lower the number?
You mean lower that number?
No.
10.
No, 10.
Oh, okay. I remember, he doesn't remember anything, the scribe. He doesn't remember all these 8 numbers. We do. We got them in Genesis. He doesn't have that in front of him. He just remembers that total. What I would say like 10,000, but he remembers, oh no, 66 of those and 60 of those. And he's base 60, so he remembers that. Now he's got to generate some numbers to match them. So he goes 10, 10, oh, that won't work. And also, if you were a scribe and you put down 10 SARS for every one, what would anybody think that was reading that? Somebody made that up. Okay, that's ridiculous. Every one of them, okay. So, okay, let's be real clever. And let's change this to 8, 10, 12. Okay, it's still 10 apiece, but it doesn't look so bad. Okay. You know, I mean, he's just scribing on clay, you know? He doesn't have a computer to figure all this stuff out. He's trying to, okay. So let's go again. 8, 10, 12. 8, 10. Okay, now, you know that that's going to turn out too big. You know that's going to turn out too big. So we have 80 here, and we want 66 of them, plus some fraction. So that's not going to work exactly, but let's say, so we go 8, let's see, let's suppose that he did this, SAR is 3,600. Now somebody with a calculator tell me what 3,600 times 8 would be. 20, but you're kidding, really? Okay, that's exactly right. That's where you got the first number from. Okay, let's try the next one. Let's take 10 times 3,600. That's easy, you can do that in your head. Okay, 3,600. 12 times 3,600. I'll wait for the answer.
43,200.
43,200. Okay, that's right. So that's where the number's coming from. Okay, now you repeat the number. Oh, no wonder the 28.8 is a repeat of that. Okay, I see what he's doing. He's starting over 8, 10, 12. Okay, there's 10, 3,600. Okay, I get it. But now 12, that doesn't match. So at this point, it's obvious to him, this isn't gonna work. You're gonna end up with too much. So what he does is he says, oh, I know what I'll do. He says, I'll start over at this point. I'll write this in blue because this is different. He says, I'm gonna start over again. I'll start with 8. And then instead of 10, I'll split that up and I'll put 5 and 5. Now let's add those numbers and see how many SARs we've got. Add those numbers for me. Somebody with a good calculator.
68.
What's that?
68?
I hope not.
No?
No,
Okay,
it
sorry.
would be 20.
Probably
Oh,
66.
no, that's not right.
It may be. I hope. If it is, I'm wrong.
In my head, I got 66, but.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. I like your head. 66. So we have 66 SARs. That's his target. That's what he's looking for. 66 SARs. So you got the 66 SARs. Now we need 6 NERs. 6 NERs. So what is he going to do? Well, let's just put 5 of them here and 5 of them there. Let's see if that will work. Excuse me, not 5. Excuse me, he wants 6 of them. Put 5 of them there and 1 of them there. That would be a total of 6. So that is the target he's after. Now, what would 5 SARs and 5 NERs, what would that compute to be, Gabriel? 5
1 second.
times 3,600 and then 5 times 600.
Those numbers.
Maybe
Yeah,
21.
it would turn out that way.
It would, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that would make 21,000 in our terms. And if you took 5 SARs and 1 NER, 18,600. Okay, in other words, these odd numbers, these strange numbers, they give you a summation of 21,000. No, everybody knows that's crazy, that won't work. But that actually is generated from a scribe who's got this target number in mind. So where do you get that target number? From the only record that the world could possibly have, the one that came with Noah through the flood. Everybody else is gone. There's only one record that could be. And so Adam wasn't a king, first, and nobody else to reign over. Noah, everybody died under him. He was. So you just put the eight people under him, 8 other people.
We don't want to remember him.
And so you got it. And so this is where the numbers go. So these ridiculous numbers actually make sense. It's just a different numbering system. And what this tells you is that this really is a record that pre-existed the flood. Well, that's incredible. How many people today think that Genesis was made up in Moses' day or sometime later? Actually, most people that don't believe in the Bible would say it was made up hundreds of years, centuries after even Moses. And so that these figures are all just generated just randomly. But now you can demonstrate that the oldest physical record of history actually reflects Genesis chapter 5. Now, I suppose a person that really didn't believe in God would hear this and he would say, I don't think so. I don't know what he would say. But this is, to me, incredible evidence that this record of Genesis predated the flood. It's the only possible record that could come through. And therefore, it actually will explain in a rational way why the Sumerians gave you such ridiculous numbers. So I think this tells you that Genesis is right. That's a very simple lesson from this. But is there any other record in Genesis chapter 5 that gives different numbers than our King James Bible? Is there any other record of Genesis 5 that gives you a different set of numbers? Does anybody know?
You mean aside from Genesis 5?
in Genesis
In
5.
Genesis 5.
Any other record of any other Bible version that changes the numbers?
Must be.
There must be, or I wouldn't ask.
You're right.
The Book of Enoch? The Book of Enoch? Maybe the Book of Enoch?
No. Actually in Genesis.
Oh, in
But
Genesis.
another version of Genesis, another translation.
This is the book of generations.
Okay, that's good. That's good. No, I mean another translation.
Of
tell
Genesis
me-
5.
What's it again? Of Genesis 5.
You're looking
We're
for-
talking about the Hebrew, the common Hebrew version of Genesis 5. Is there another language version of Genesis?
You mean like the Septuagint?
Yeah. What is that? What language? Greek. If you look at the Septuagint, you will not find these numbers that we find in the Hebrew of Genesis 5. Now, there's some brethren overseas that have written on this, very bright brother, and he actually believes that Septuagint is correct and that the Hebrews changed it later. And if you look on the internet about that, why do the Septuagint numbers and the Hebrew numbers differ? You'll find opinions that say, well, I think it's because the Septuagint numbers show that 6,000 years is up about the time of Jesus, and they're trying to dispute that, so they changed all the numbers. Well, I don't think that's right. I think the Hebrew that we have and we've gone by is correct. But one of the evidences that it is correct is the Sumerian king list is predicated on the Hebrew numbers that we find. The Septuagint is going to change some of these numbers, and those numbers you can't explain those numbers by this sum that we find in the Sumerian king list. Now, there's another version called the Samaritan Pentateuch, and the Samaritans change a couple of those numbers as well, and that won't work here. So what is this telling us? Not only that Genesis pre-existed, the earliest historical record we've got, way before Moses. The Sumerians were before Moses. But not only that, but it tells you of the three existing versions, Hebrew or Septuagint or the Samaritan. Only the Hebrew would fit this rendering. And the Septuagint didn't exist when the Sumerians made this list. And the Samaritan didn't exist when the Sumerians made this list. Yes, could you?
Question, the Sumerians were idol worshippers? They didn't believe in one God, right?
Probably everybody was just corrupt at that point, yeah.
Okay, that's after the flood, right?
After the
Sumerians
flood.
after the flood, so
Yeah.
they didn't believe in a single God.
You know,
or-
I say that that's likely because the Sumerians generally had different gods, but I don't really know early on what they thought. I think it took a little while for things to change with everybody, because everybody after the flood had to know Noah was the person that brought him through, and they had to know what Noah's God told him. So I don't know when these pagan idols, gods came in. I don't really know.
I asked because this corroborates. You say corroborates Genesis. These would be considered like secular, a secular record, a different, totally different
Very,
record.
very
is what
different.
you're saying.
Very different. Yeah, very different. Yes, Dave.
So what time period are the Sumerians, where would this be placed?
Let's put it this way. I mean, the dates of history that they use are way too old. And everybody, even historians, every time they change history, they're bringing it closer
Yeah.
and closer and closer.
Yeah.
Now, I happen to be on a discussion group, had like 1,000 people on it at one time. And it's called the New Chronology Forum. And they're continually abbreviating the history of antiquity.
Is
Yeah.
that where you presented the Egyptian thing being shortened, the shorter version of the Egyptian
Yeah.
kingdom? Is that what the same
I
website?
did.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Okay.
The man in charge of this is a man named David Roll. He's a British man. I don't contribute to this list very much. I still read it. I don't contribute to it. But David Roll is a good historian, and he wrote a book. Do you remember the name of the book? Oh, okay, all right, okay. Maybe it was just New Chronology. I'm sorry, I've got it in my room and I've read it, and it's a very nice book. But he abbreviates history. And so I told him, I do a little bit of work in astronomy. I don't have a telescope, but I do it computer-wise. I have a program, Skyview Cafe.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm able to see what happened when in history according to modern calculations. He's not a mathematician. I've lost most of my mathematician stuff anyway, but I know numbers a little bit. So he had something, and I showed him, oh, I know what it was. Yeah, it was about Abraham and the 4 kings that came against him in Genesis. What chapter is that? 4 kings that came against. Let's see, where is this? And he had to go rescue Lot.
12,
He meets Melchizedek.
Chapter 12.
maybe.
Let me just go to the beginning.
Let's see. No, chapter 14. Chapter 14. So let's read that if we could. Margaret, could you read that? Chapter 14, verse 1.
And it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Eliam, and Tidal, king of nations.
Okay, now that was unfair to ask you to read that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is a coalition of 4 kings that came against Sodom, and they took Lot prisoner among a lot of other Sodomites. And because Abraham's nephew was prisoner, Abraham mounted a group of 318 men and other allies, and he went and he rescued Lot. So who are these 4 kings? Well, anyway, I think we can identify who these kings were today. And let's see now. Let's see who the famous one is. Chedorlaomer. Okay. You know, I didn't come with all this in my memory here today, but it says, in the 5th verse, Chedorlaomer came again. I know that king's name, but I can't remember it just right now. Anyway, we can actually find a list of that king and his exploits, and we find 4 different lunar observations of his day. And so I was able to tell David Roll, by my computation, this is when these things happened. Now, how do I know when that happened? Because I know when Abraham lived, according to Bible chronology. And so I know approximately when this would be. So I took a period of 500 years, and I calculated every series of lunar eclipses and things for 500 years. And when would this pattern of 4 occur in this 500-year period? And I told him it appeared one time only. So either the records are wrong, or if those 4 records are right, then it happened in this year. So I wrote to David Roll on this, website, on this discussion group, and I suggested this. And he was enraptured. It's great. Oh, this is wonderful. Because it really congealed approximately with what he thought. So, this is good. Okay, great. Well, for me, this tells me we're on the right thread of history in our computation. And you all know I believe in 2043. Everything about it just continues to deepen and deepen my conviction on it. And this is one of those things. It matches my dates for Abraham. And I checked for 500 years. It doesn't match any other possible scenario, unless the records are wrong. Anyway, he really liked it. He really liked it, because it matched pretty much what he thought. So he said to me, okay, Dave, now try this. In the 12th dynasty of Egypt, there are like 40 records. In Egypt, they used a lunar calendar and they used a solar calendar. And there are 40 times when they said this event happened on this lunar date and this solar date. Wow, that's pretty good. You have a date that's both lunar and solar, and you got 40 pairs of these. And he said, can you tell me when that would have happened? So I remember he said, that was years ago, he sent it to me. And I thought, I'd like to investigate. And I said, I have no idea about this. Can you tell me where I can read about it? He said, sure. He gave me the periodical to read. I remember I checked it out, and I studied it for 3 or 4 months just to try to understand this old record. And then gradually I started to look through the records, and I took them all down. Again, a period of 500 years, I think I even made it 1,000 years in this case. And there's only, I can't say the only, I would say the best fit for those 40 combinations was, and then I told him what it was. He wasn't happy. because,
Shortened
because,
too much.
what's that?
It brought everything
It
close.
shortened a little bit too much.
Yeah.
And he thinks the Exodus was in the 13th dynasty, and my opinion is that it was in the 12th dynasty. And by the way, it perfectly fits the scriptural numbers for the Exodus if it was at the end of the 12th dynasty. Okay, now I'm talking about things that, I mean, nobody talks about these things. But in the 12th dynasty of Egypt, if you want to find the Pharaoh of the Exodus, you have to look for somebody whose father reigned for something like 40 years. Because Moses was in Egypt, and he killed that person that was persecuting the Hebrew, and he had to flee for his life, and he was gone for 40 years. And then it says the king that threatened him was gone. So that king must have reigned a long time. So anyway, it all fits. That's all. I won't give up a bunch of detail. It all fits perfectly. But it shows that the Exodus was the end of the 12th dynasty and not the end of the 13th. So David Rowe was not happy. So he said, okay, thank you, I don't like it. So he liked the first answer, he doesn't like the second one. So now, and by the way, just so you know, I've got all these details in the approaching, the approaching end of the harvest. They're all there with details specific. But it's not easy reading. If I didn't know this stuff, I wouldn't be able to figure it out for reading.
But if you point out that this is the only time it could have been,
Yep.
that's not convincing to him?
No, not even convincing to Jim Parkinson. Because he said, well, maybe some records were off. So, okay, maybe some records were off, yeah.
What's the span of an Egyptian dynasty? How many years?
Egyptian
Generally speaking?
dynasty, they're all variable. The
Oh.
12th dynasty, it depends and they're all variable.
Mm.
Just depends how long that dynasty lasted, how many years those kings reigned, and when somebody finally took over and made a new
Oh,
dynasty.
dynasty meaning son of the king, his son, and his.
It's
go
a
on
series
and
of
on.
them.
Oh.
That's right. Now, the 12th dynasty is considered to be the Old Kingdom and the Middle Kingdom. The Middle Kingdom.
Hmm.
If you ever read about the Middle Kingdom, that was the 12th dynasty.
Of
And
the-
in my opinion, everything fits very nice.
Hmm.
And other people do agree. There's been books written on this that say the Exodus happened in the 12th dynasty. And they were written before I did my thinking on it. So it wasn't me that swayed them. But I think we demonstrated it as correct.
Do we know the king?
David and then Gabriella.
Okay, I want to go back to my original question, but
All right.
on the dynasties,
Yeah,
you say it's the 12th dynasty. He
Yeah.
was thinking the 13th dynasty.
he was.
But the
His-
12th dynasty is older than the 13th.
It is. It is. That means history is farther compressed our direction
Oh, yeah,
than he
okay.
thought. Now,
Right.
he is noted for the New Chronology. Maybe that's the name of his book, New Chronology. I don't know. But he is very well noted for his bringing all of past history closer to us. But now we're even bringing it closer. Now, he has the same date of the Exodus as I do, within 1 year. Because he says 966 BC, then he goes back 479 or 480 years. So we're on track when the Exodus happened. So if the Exodus was in the 13th dynasty, then history goes back.
Yeah,
farther.
right, yeah,
12th
absolutely,
dynasty
yeah, I
is
see
more
that, yeah.
compressed. Now, I will say, he's unable to explain that the 13th dynasty had everybody ruling for very, very short periods. Nobody reigned for 40 years. He can't explain that. He just doesn't believe in the scripture. He just says, well, the scriptures are off there. But the only way, but it does fit the 12th dynasty, because he had a period of this king that reigned more than 40 years before his son took over, reigned for a few years, and then he lost his life. And then guess who took over at the end of the 12th dynasty? His wife. Why did his wife take over? Why didn't his son take over? Well, in the scriptures, what happened to the son of the Pharaoh of the Exodus? He died.
He was
That's
the
right.
firstborn.
And that's right.
Yeah.
And so he's gone. And so this is one of 3 instances in Egyptian history where the queen became the pharaoh. And she reigned for 3 or 4 years, and that was the end of the dynasty, and that was it. Yes.
So why?
Gabrielle, I haven't forgotten.
Oh, okay, that's
Okay,
okay.
go ahead.
So why Brother Jim Parkinson does not agree with?
I wish I could answer that. I don't answer. I tell you what, Jim agrees with me on 966 BC.
Oh,
And that really, but he's the only brother I know of that says, yeah, I agree with that, but I still don't agree with your final answer. because what he wants to do is expand the period of the judges. You know, most brethren say it's 450 years, and I'm showing that 1 Kings 6:1 is right, and that in fact there's an abridgment of the judges. And he says, no, it's not 350, it's not 450, it's even bigger, because he's trying to expand it to make up 6,000 years end at the beginning of the harvest. Now, he's got other reasons for doing that, but that's Jim's point of view. Now, the reason I say it's only Jim's point of view is because, frankly, how many brethren really deal with this kind of stuff? You know, Jim does. So I have showed him, like, these various computations, and he says, nice. But I don't think it's right, so.
Okay, you're gonna have to excuse my ignorance.
No,
No.
you have no ignorance to excuse, I'm
No,
sorry.
but I'm gonna just, this is absolutely not my forte.
Well, it's
Okay.
not anybody's forte,
So,
including mine, I just got into
The
it.
numbers that you're saying, are you saying that when we look at the scriptures to come figure out where in the Exodus happened, the scriptures do not give us that information? Is that
No,
what
they
you're saying?
do. Hey, look at 1 Kings 6:1.
Sure, why is it different
Look,
than?
look at 1 Kings, look that up, and meanwhile, I want to get
Six-
Gabriella.
6:1?
1 Kings 6:1, look at that.
Gabriella, go ahead.
Gabriella, go
I was
ahead.
just wondering, how, like, the dynasties vary, but what is the difference between the 12th and the 13th according to you versus David Roll?
He thinks that the, how shall I say this?
And
It gets complex. After the 12th dynasty, there were dynasties 13, 14, and 15 that kind of overlapped each other.
okay,
And he thinks dynasty 13 was later, started later, not after, no, he would put 13 after 12, he certainly would. But he has dynasty 15 mixed in there and overlapped with 14 and 13.
right.
I have to look back and see exactly what he does, but he just puts everything back farther than I do.
Okay,
That's
but,
all.
and then to clarify, so like, you've got the 966, which he agrees with.
He does, although in recent times he says approximately. No, it's not approximate, it's either right or it's wrong.
But he has it as 966.
Yeah,
Okay, and then, but then we're shifting our understanding of where the dynasties fall
correct,
in where those dates are.
correct, correct. Okay, I want to get back to you. We'll get right to
Do
it.
we know the name of all the pharaohs of Dynasty 12 and 13?
We do.
Okay.
There are records of all this dynasty, all those people.
But they're named, what Ramses is named, and was there
Yeah, that's
Ramses in 13 and 12 or something? Was there two Ramses?
There was no Ramses in number 12. So the question is, why is it named Ramses in the Bible? There's two options for that. Nobody that really believes the Bible really believes that Ramses lived in that time. Now, when I was young, I saw the motion picture, the Ten Commandments. And there's Ramses on the throne, right there, before Moses. But everybody that really follows the scripture knows that he didn't really live then. But that doesn't mean the name wasn't available. Or maybe that place location was named after, in deference to later kings. But anybody that really follows the scripture knows that Ramses II did not live at the time of the Exodus. That's just not feasible.
Is that either the 12th or the 13th?
That's
There was
the
no-
Ramses.
There was
Okay,
no
well,
Ramses.
Ramses is like, I don't know, it's something like this 14th, 15th, 16th dynasty or something like that.
That was the first Ramses
No, okay, don't quote me
Yeah,
here. Don't
yeah.
quote me. If I was at home and you emailed me, I would look it up and give you an exact answer.
Right.
But it was later in, I don't know, the 18th, 17th, something like that. 16th
So you're
dynasty.
saying there was nobody named Ramses before that?
That's correct. That's correct. But there's nobody, in the Bible, you don't know the name of the Pharaoh of the Exodus. You just know that there was a location called Ramses. But you don't know that there's a Pharaoh named
I
Ramses.
thought there was the name of the pharaoh was named.
If you find it, you let me know. I'll alert the whole world. But you find it. See if you, but the answer is no. It's not.
We just all think that because of the movie?
Say again?
We just all think that because of the movie?
Yeah. Well, also because the name Ramses is there. And a very famous pharaoh in ancient history was Ramses II. Very famous pharaoh, he reigned for a long time. And so people say, well, the name Ramses is in there,
And
not
is
as
it
a
in the
person
Bible?
though. It's in the book of Exodus. It's a location name. And so they said, oh, okay, I think that was named after this famous Pharaoh, and therefore he was the Pharaoh of the Exodus. Nobody that believes in the Bible today will say that. Not one person that I know of. They will all, okay, I'm overstating the case. There are some people that say that the Bible information on the history and chronology is wrong. I believe in the Bible except for that part of it. But nobody can maintain that Ramses II was the Pharaoh of the Exodus and still agree with the history in the Bible. Nobody can do that.
So he's just named Pharaoh in the
That's all.
That's
Pharaoh.
Wow.
I wish his name was there.
Yeah.
Then it would solve a lot of problems.
Yeah.
But he's just not there. Okay, now, Sister
Yeah,
Dude.
Trish.
Sir Rossi, Trish. thank
Rick's
you.
wife, that's what.
Rick's
everybody
wife.
calls me. Yeah.
Trish. Yeah, I knew you before you were married to him. so-
That's true.
Yeah, okay.
You did.
Trish, go ahead.
Okay, so you said you turned to First Kings.
Yeah, 1 Kings 6:1. Read that for me.
First Kings 6:1.
Correct.
Let's see, 6:1, and it came to pass from the 418th year.
No,
that-
no, read that once more. You're real careful.
480th.
80th.
80th, sorry. Year after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, well, that's specific, in the month of Ziph, which is the 2nd month, that he began to build the house of the Lord.
Okay. Now, if the date that everyone today that studied this agrees with for this date, 966 BC, like David Rule does agree with that. And I do too. I spent 3 years studying that, and I think, yes, he was right. The man's name that wrote that, who was he? Donald? No, not Donald Wiseman. Oh, I don't know. Names are skipping me all the time, but a famous writer. He was a Seventh-day Adventist, and he wrote a book, The Mysterious Numbers of the Hebrew Kings. It's a very famous book. It was published in the 1950s. My edition is in the 1960s. And he's the one that showed this was date 966 BC. I've gone through with a fine-tooth comb. He is right. Jim Parkinson will actually agree with me on this point. The brethren in general will not.
Okay,
Go ahead.
okay, I just, never mind.
Oh, no.
No, because I really don't understand all this.
No, that's right. No. It's a very good question. So this is the predicate for understanding when the Exodus occurred, because this says it was year 480 after the Exodus. That means 479 years intervened before that.
Right.
So let's take 966 and let's add to that backward 479 years. Gabriella, can you do that for me? 966 plus 479.
Plus, I'm sorry.
966 BC plus 479 years going backward.
Oh, right, because it's backwards.
Yeah.
1445.
That's exactly the date of the Exodus, and you'll find that everywhere on the internet. That's not unique to me. But if you believe this scripture is right, then you believe 1445 is the date of the Exodus. Now, all the brethren today agree that from Adam until the Exodus, they agree on all of that. 1656 to the flood, 427 to Abraham, 430 more years to the Exodus. Everybody agrees. The only thing brethren disagree with is 966 correct? And number 2, is 1 Kings 6:1 correct? Are you aware of the fact that most of the brethren think that's the wrong scripture? You were not aware of that? Okay, well, that's right. People don't talk about this subject very much.
Oh,
But-
I never talked to anybody about it, so.
Yeah, okay. Okay, but that's the question. A lot of brethren
Me
dispute
and
this.
Pat, they're not my.
Yeah, well, no, a lot of brethren say that scripture is wrong. That's all. This is wrong. It's got a wrong
It just
number.
doesn't belong in the Bible? or
It's just
wrong?
got a corrupted number. Corrupted number. And they say, I think maybe it's 100 years bigger than that.
Okay.
But the answer is, it can't be, even if it's 101 years different, and you can't explain 2 digits off by a slip of the pen. You can't explain it. And now we can demonstrate that it really is right. Because I know the date for the Exodus. You can show it from the 40 lunar and solar dates. Okay, now this is all getting complex, and I would never talk to the brethren this way. Okay, but I know you can handle it. But it's 1 Kings 6:1. If you agree with that, and you agree with 966, then you've got 2043. It's that simple. It's that simple. Go ahead.
So the 966 is when we built the temple or when the Exodus happened?
When 966 is when he first started saying, let's work on this temple and lay the foundation.
Oh, I thought we were saying that's when the Exodus happened.
Yeah. I got
Oh, is
mixed
this
up,
1 Kings
too.
6:1?
No, I thought the year 966
Is the year when Solomon said, let's build the
Build the
temple.
Okay.
That's
and
when
so
he began-
1445 is the year you're saying.
You go back 479 years, and that's what the scripture says, from the Exodus to the temple. The temple was in year 480, which means 479 years have transpired. And really, the whole chronology all stands on this scripture and the date of the scripture. That's it.
Okay, so I'm gonna,
Yeah.
you're gonna regret that I came in here.
I know, I'm not, and I won't. I know I won't.
Okay. Why does this matter?
Well, because,
Why, what is it that, like, if I don't understand
yeah.
this, what does that mean?
People
What does
don't,
this mean?
people don't have to understand this. But here's what the implications are.
Yeah, that. what
If
does
that's
it-
right, that means the kingdom is here in 2043. That means 6,000 years will end in 2043. And this is, I mean, would anybody like to know when the 1,000-year kingdom is going to begin? When Ezekiel 38 is going to happen? When the church will be complete? Would that be of any interest to anybody to know? Well, not to everybody, but to some people it would. I'm deeply persuaded on this point. I could show you other
Okay,
points.
so where does this fall with the Lord's return in 1874?
Okay, let me show you. That's a very good, I'm so happy you came to this study. And that's a perfect question.
But David, we could really say that this 966 figure really helps us define where the 6,000 years ends.
Exactly,
So if you put it in
Yeah.
that language,
Yeah.
it tells you when 6,000 years ends.
Correct. That's exactly what it does. And therefore, if it's indeed the seventh millennium is the kingdom, then it will begin in 2043. Now, I'd like to erase all these numbers. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
And let me take a picture of it.
Oh, okay, all right.
Question,
ahead.
so you, so the date of the Exodus is 1446? Is that?
1445.
1445.
Instead of adding 480, add 479 elapsed years, and you
Oh,
get
okay.
1445. Now, if you look on the internet and you Google, you'll find both those numbers, because some people aren't forgetting that the beginning of year 480 is the end of 479. So that's why you'll see both numbers on the internet, but the right number is 1445.
So Brother Russell's chronology does not agree that Solomon's temple was built in 966?
He
Is
does
that-
not. He does not.
What's his date?
He doesn't give you a date for this.
Oh, really?
But the answer is it would be about 70 years off.
Okay,
Yeah, about 70 years off.
okay.
And why is that? It's because somebody asked Brother Russell, you find this in the question book, page 42. Remember that one? They say, what about all the kings of Israel and Judah? How do we understand all these and the interplay between all these kings? And Brother Russell was so pleasantly honest. He says, we don't see how these scriptures fit. Maybe someday we will. That's it. What a refreshingly honest answer. And guess what? Nobody in his lifetime understood it. Not a single person. And then 30 years later comes the scholar that figures it out. He believed in the scriptures. He figured out how to put together the kings of Israel and Judah. And when he did that, and he did that first, then he said, because he was a scholar of these things, I'm going to go through all the Assyrian tablets, because I read Assyrian and I know what they are. And the Assyrians, they listed every king and how much they reigned. And in addition to that, they gave every single year of their history. And they told what happened that year. And they put a person's name on that year. It's called an eponym list. So they know when the Assyrian history is. And the Bible tells you when things connected between the Hebrews and the Assyrians. So he did all the work of the scripture first. Then he took the Assyrian record and he matched that. They exactly fit. They exactly fit. From the end of the kingdom of the 10 tribes, all the way back to the time when Ahab encountered the king of Assyria. They exactly fit. So we know it's right. I mean, like I said, I spent 3 years on this. I'm persuaded that Edwin Thiel, that's his name, just came to me, that Edwin Thiel is right. And
He's the one that
most
matched it up. He's the one that matched
He's the one that matched up the
Edwin
kings of
Thiel.
Israel and Judah.
Okay.
Now, his arguments have been improved, but his result has not been improved. It's still 966 BC. And now, if you look at time and prophecy, that is what we say in time and prophecy. We explain exactly how all these scriptures fit and how they fit only one way. Nobody has read that and told me, I see there's a mistake there. I remember years ago, I asked Brother Jim Parkinson, please just read it, please. I tried to talk to him about it, he said, oh, okay, I'll read it, it's better than listening to me. He'd just read it. And he came back and said, okay. So in the RBIC, you'll find a listing of those dates with 966. So that's Jim is a man of integrity. I really appreciate that. Gabriella.
So if Brother Russell had the 966 year 70 years off, wouldn't his 6,000 years only be 70 years off from 2043?
Well, the other difference is that he doesn't agree with 1 Kings 6:1. He says 1 Kings 6:1 is a corrupted text and we can't rely on it. That's what he says in volume 2.
But then, isn't that why he doesn't have 966?
Nobody had 966 when he was.
That was the meshing.
Nobody even knew about
Okay,
it.
okay.
So suppose that he accepted 1 Kings 6:1. Nothing would make sense because 6,000 years wouldn't take you to the beginning of the harvest. He had no idea when the harvest would end. I mean, who did? He thought 1914. Now we're way past that. So nothing would have made sense. The only thing that would make sense is if you say that 1 Kings 6:1 is corrupted and it's 100 years off. So he followed that approach. It wasn't original with him. He got that from Nelson Barber. And, half of the people thought it was corrupt, half of the people didn't. There's no internal evidence that it's corrupt. It's just whether you like the result or not. Did you have your hand raised?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay, all right.
I'm still trying to figure it all out.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, let me show you something. Just show you something. I'm going to erase all this stuff. And I want to show you something I didn't say last night. Where's the...
Right there, it's up here by
Here,
there.
thank you.
What page of the question book was that?
Page 42. And he is so pleasantly honest. Someday maybe we will. And today, we do. It would not have been feasible to understand the answer. Suppose Brother Russell knew that 2043 would be the end of 6,000. Oh.
That would have
It's a
been a
lot.
problem.
What?
It would have been a problem.
It would have been a problem. I mean, that's so far away, it's like, oh, okay, well, it's a long ways away. It wouldn't have the same impact at all. Okay, so now I want to show you, yesterday, you weren't here, Tricia, but yesterday we talked about the flood. Okay, here's the 5 years, 5 months of the flood, which we suggested represents the gospel age. That's the 40 days of rain. That starts in 33, and that ended in 73. I'm just duplicating what we said last night. And then here, we have 1874, the beginning of the harvest. And then 74 years later, we have 1948, when they saw the top of the mountains. And that's as far as I took it. But you can take it farther. You can take it to Genesis 8:13. Let's read that text, Genesis 8:13. And that tells you when the waters were actually gone, the waters were dry. And if those waters represent the curse, and you're saved from the curse by getting into the wooden ark, the ransom, because Peter says that represents baptism into Christ, then if the waters are finally gone, the curse is gone. Let's see when the curse is finally gone. Brother Dave, you have that right? Oh, wait, Jay, you have it? It's in English.
It's in English.
Okay, read that.
In ESV, is it okay?
If I please, yeah.
In the 601st year, in the first month, the first day of the month, the waters were dried from off the earth, and Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry.
Okay, then that means 600 years exactly had been completed, because we're now on the first day of the first month of year 601. So if 600 years were completed exactly the day when they saw the water gone, is there any credibility to thinking that maybe that represents the end of 6,000 years when the curse is finally gone? Sounds credible to me. Sounds very good to me. Well, now, guess what? Guess how many years are from this point when they saw the top of the mountain to this point when the waters were gone?
95.
95. That's how many days, excuse me, that's how many days went by. Now, I have to explain that, and I won't explain it tonight, because it just gets too complex. But if you calculate carefully, it's 95 days. That means if this is 1874, this date happens to be, oh, what am I doing? I can't even write. That happens to be 2043. Is that a coincidence? Just happens to be exactly what history tells us, that 6,000 years end in 2043. That's exactly when the curse is to be dried. That's when it's finally done. That's when everything is finished. Now, there's one more thing I'd like to say about this 600. The Jubilees. I gave a talk on this in Canada. You heard it, but you weren't there. Maybe,
In Canada?
yeah, you weren't in Canada. Paul was there. Yeah, Paul was. So, I learned this from R.E. Streeter's book on, I think it was the book on Daniel, or was it the book on Revelation? I forget which one. Anyway, R.E. Streeter showed very precisely that in the Jubilees, when you start in Leviticus 25, verses 7, 8, and 9, I won't go through the details, it's getting late, people are getting tired. But precisely, to the day, exactly 600 months, Jewish months, elapse until you get to the very first sounding of the Jubilee, which, by the way, was on the 10th day of the 7th month. Gabriella, what is special about the 10th day of the 7th month every year in the Jewish calendar?
It's one of those special holidays where they have a special thing.
It's right. Very good. You're exactly right. What is that special holiday, Brother Jay?
Day of Atonement.
Day of Atonement. And the Day of Atonement is a picture of when mankind is atoned for. That's a picture of the kingdom. Now, I'd like you to read also Ezekiel 40, verse 1. Gabriela, would you do that for me? Ezekiel 40, verse 1. This is the first verse that starts 9 chapters all about the 1,000-year kingdom. The first verse about 9 chapters of the kingdom. Let's see when this is.
In the 25th year of our exile, at the beginning of the year, on the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year after Jerusalem had been captured,
Okay.
on that very day.
Okay, what day of the month, beginning the year? What day of the month? 10th day.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at a Jewish calendar today, you will see that the year changes on month number 7. That seems very odd, but that's the way it is today. It's been that way for centuries. So this is telling you that Ezekiel's vision of the kingdom started on the Day of Atonement. What an appropriate day for a vision of the kingdom. But what does that tell you? That these 600 months that passed until the Day of Atonement, when the Jubilee began to be blown, and this is precise to a day. Now, I did a lot of computations just to double check that. Would you like to hear them all? No. But it all works. And if you want to really hear it, you can listen to the record of the tape of the presentation I gave in Canada. Because I actually took them through all that.
Okay.
I wrote it on the board. And to the very day, 600 months, bring you to the first Jubilee, 600 years, take you to the curse being dried. This is in Jewish terms, because months are Jewish. These are lunar months, by the way. Lunar months. This is with mankind, because mankind uses solar years. So whether Jewish or mankind, you're getting the same answer. Oh, it's just perfect.
Okay, but let me
Yeah.
because now, when I read the second volume,
Yeah.
is if what the dates that you just said, not this thing, but the other date, that is inserted into the second volume, does the Lord not return in 1874?
No, he did return in 1874.
So those numbers still work out that he returned in
Yeah.
1874?
You see, 1874 comes from the days of Daniel, 1335 days.
That's just what I make sure.
Yeah.
Because
No,
if that's off, I want to know.
Yeah. Trish, look at this. You see where I'm starting here, the beginning
Yeah.
here? That is requirement for this to work in 2043.
Oh, okay.
They're interdependent. One, you can't do one without the other. And that's what a lot of brethren are afraid of. They're afraid of 2043, you're changing the numbers. What happens to the Lord's return? And they don't even want to listen further. They're scared. And
Well, I do want to know, because if you
Yeah.
don't think the Lord's returned in 1874, did he return?
he did.
Okay.
He did, and there's so much to say about that, but yeah, but the answer is yes, yeah. And if he didn't, then this whole thing falls apart, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I'll show you another example of this. I will stun you, I hope. But go ahead, Margaret.
I still don't understand 95 days.
95 days. If you look in the record, you'll find the day that the ark came to rest. You'll find the day that they saw the top of the mountains. And you'll find the day that they looked out and saw the waters gone. And if you compute those days, you'll find it all works. If, there's an if there. But anyway, go ahead, let me hear what you have to say.
I don't understand, I guess. So, 5 months is the whole experience, right?
The five months takes you to the time when the ark came aground.
Ground.
The flood is not over. It's just the ark stopped moving.
Yeah, then
Yeah.
they see
Hello.
the top of the mountains, 1948.
That is correct.
And then it says more 95 days.
It doesn't say that. It tells you the date here, and I'm computing between that date and that date are 95 days.
Oh, okay.
But here, the 74 days, I'm computing that as well. I'm computing that between the record of when they came aground and the record of when they saw the top of the mountains, they give you a date. You have to now compute the number of days between those. Now, there's more to be said on this. I just didn't want to get complex. There's more to be said. Even my brother reminds me, my brother Robin, who agrees with all this, says, wait, David, you know, you have to really explain this when I haven't explained it. I've just affirmed to you that that's the way it is. And I could explain it, but you're tired. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, I just wanted to just say one more thing on the 1874 because it's so important.
Yeah.
So I just want to say it a different way. The 1874 date we get from the 1335 years, and that starts in 539. That 539 date is just a secular date. It's not really, we don't pull that out of the Bible. It says when these two things happen, when those two things happen, compute these number of days, the 1260, the 1290, the 1300. So that 539 date is independent from everything else. So it doesn't change. No matter what chronology you use, as long as you start with 539, which is a secular date, tells us how to get that date, you're going to come up with 1874.
That is exactly right. Doesn't depend on any of these changes.
No, you can make all the changes you want all over everywhere, but that's not going to change. And just as another proof of that, it's the same thing when Christ came the first time. This is the second present. When he came the first time, it's the 70 weeks, right? Okay. What do we use to start that? It's another secular date. It's when the city was the decree for the city and so forth, and the temple to be rebuilt. Okay, as long as we find that date, it's independent of all the other chronology. It doesn't. So you're always going to get 33, and you're always going to get 1874. It doesn't change. But that is the big fear when you start looking at some things. Everybody's like, oh, it's going to change 1874. It doesn't change 1874. 1874 is locked down from the 539, which is a secular time period.
Exactly, Jeff.
How do we know that 539 is a proper starting date?
That's 539 AD.
Right, yeah, no, I
Yeah.
understand.
Well,
I mean,
that is the year when
Sure.
when Ravenna, which was the capital of Italy,
Mhm.
was finally overthrown, and therefore the rebels that were against the papacy, they were deposed, and now papacy's in charge. And there's a lot to be discussed on that, but since everybody agrees on that, I don't talk about it too much.
Mhm.
But there are articles on that in which Jerry Leslie has written an article. He wrote that article based on some sources that I gave to him, and he researched it, and I'm personally persuaded it's right. And Jerry Leslie has agreed with that, of course.
was that Charlemagne, the date of
No.
Charlemagne? That was a different, Charlemagne was a different
No,
date.
There's
Okay.
something wonderful I could tell you about that too,
Oh, okay.
but it gets more complex.
Okay.
So we'll go into that.
Right.
Trish, did you have something?
Well, this would be very off topic, but I always wonder why Jesus was born. They said everybody was an expectation of Messiah.
Yeah.
So then when he came, how come they had such a hard time accepting it?
That's a very good
Why
question.
would
It has
they-
nothing to do with
why-
this, but it's a
yeah,
good
but
question.
Why did everybody expect the Messiah? Was there a date calculation?
The
that they-
king,
I don't think.
they were expecting the king,
Yeah,
and he
but how,
showed
but
up.
why did they think it was gonna happen then? Was
I don't
there-
think it's because they calculated the 70-week
That's
prophecy.
not, okay, that's.
Because it turns out the Jewish history was all off by about
Okay.
a century. So they really didn't compute correctly.
Okay, I was just wondering if there was a chronology that they
Yeah,
were
yeah.
using.
But I just want to show you this. If 2043 is the beginning of the millennium, 3043 is the end of 7,000. Divide that in half exactly. And now look at Habakkuk 3:2. In the midst of the years, in wrath, remember mercy. So in the midst of 7,000 years, while the wrath of God is still poured out on all flesh, he remembers mercy and he begins counting the 70 weeks to the redemption, the first age of redemption, the second age of redemption. It all exactly fits. This is one of two things that when it came to my attention, I thought about for weeks. I said, is this really as good as I think? And the answer is, it is. Now, all the brethren don't use that date for 70 weeks, but they have to. There's no other answer. Sorry, I'm just going to be clear in my opinion.
Oh, that's okay.
People just are not looking deeply. The only person who's really looked deeply at this and tried to answer it, in my opinion, is Richard Doctor. And when I responded to him and explained, where I think the mistake is, I didn't hear back. So this is the only historical date that will be in 70 weeks. It's exactly halfway. The other thing is, you read Ezekiel 40 verse 1. Who read that? Was that Gabriella?
Yes.
Okay. That turns out, if you look in the Jewish Encyclopedia, they will tell you that's the beginning of Jubilee number 17. But they can't explain why they know that. They only know that because that's historically what they remember. And guess what? With this chronology, it turns out to be exactly right to the very year, precisely. That was the second thing that just, that came to my attention, I thought about it for weeks. Is this really as strong as I think? And the answer is both this and that are. Now there's a gentleman, I told you on this discussion group, New Chronology, a gentleman named Roger something, okay, and I've got his name in my book. I've got his name there. And he's a very good scholar, very thoughtful person, and he saw my comment about this on the internet. And so he inquired and he studied it, and he's written and published articles on this in peer-reviewed journals. Just recently, he sent me an email that says, David, he's Christian, but he won't call me brother because I don't believe in hellfire. Okay, he does. Anyway, he's a nice guy though. But he says, brother, he said, David, 20 years ago, you told me about the Jubilee. I just want to thank you because it's been the source of many articles since then. Very kind. I responded to him, he didn't even answer me. But anyway.
And
So,
now if you could just convince him there's no hellfire. you'd be-
yeah, if I could only do that. Well, I sent him volume 1. I don't know if he read it, but so anyway. Okay, well, you've been very patient. Thank you. I
Very interesting.
could talk for hours, but
Yeah.
I'll just stop at this point. And thank you all for coming. Now, I didn't say all this last night because you had a lot of brethren that might not have liked it. So, but you all look very friendly here.
I was there and I liked it.
What's that?
I liked both.
You like both.
And I was there last week.
Well, let's rise. And Brother Dave, would you mind closing the prayer?
Our kind, gracious Heavenly Father, we come before Thee with thankful hearts that we're able to gather together in this small group and to learn more of Thy plans and purposes. We thank Thee for the understanding of these things and even the progression of learning these things. We always are looking to learn more of Thee and Thy dear Son. So we thank You for these things. We ask a continued blessing on this evening and the rest of this convention. We thank You for all these things. We ask these things in Jesus' name.
Karen, thank you for coming.
Oh, yeah, that's okay.